Hello, viewer, and welcome to Spotlight here on Hope TV, where you look and live. And on Spotlight, we are always doing our very best to bring to you persons who are making contributions in the community, just turning us, driving us in the direction of light. Now, one big area in our lives today is the area of gender, and specifically women. That's a big conversation, different forums talk about business, women conversation. They talk about culture, women, a big conversation. They talk about faith. Women are present there. Talk about professionalism, women present there. So women are a huge conversation right now. You cannot run away from it. And just consistent with that reality in our culture today, our Spotlight edition, we will be talking about women, talking about power, talking about faith, but also talking about women and violence. Now, you are always part of this conversation, so please do engage us on our social media platforms. Also engage us on the WhatsApp line that's provided there as we talk about women, faith, power, and violence. And to help us in this discussion are wonderful people who are passionate in this area of gender, in this area of women. And we want to introduce our guests. That is Malele Ngalu. Welcome, Malele.
Thank you so
We're
much.
talking about women with you here.
Yes.
I mean, it's a wonderful thing
Looking forward.
to have you. Malele Ngalu is the regional director of Oasis International, a publishing institution. I mean, all your books, he does a great job. Welcome to Spotlight.
Thank you.
And
Thank
also on Spotlight, not new here at all. She's frequently present here, giving us a lot of insights, especially about women and imprisonment, and just making sure that the women inside prison and outside of prison are well taken care of. Big push of policy when it comes to taking care of women in prison and out of prison. That's none other than Teresa Njoroge, who is the founder of Clean Start. Welcome, Teresa.
Thank you very much for having us.
Yeah.
We're grateful.
And you do a great job also.
Thank you.
You work, for you it's women, like
Yes.
day in, day out.
Day in, day
and a very
out.
unique cluster of women.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think it's just a good place for us to start with you. Because one statement, we'll talk more maybe about even you as a woman. And then at some point with the women that you work with. But I've heard some leaders say, especially some female leaders say, that this is a great time to be a woman. And, and they said, all the way from Michelle Obama, all the way, to just, the high and also in the day-to-day community, a strong statement there. What does that mean exactly? And do you feel that way?
Yes. Indeed. Yes, I do feel that way to a huge extent because of the many efforts that have been put in place to uplift the woman, because the woman has been left behind as the weaker sex. There's a period that she was really left behind when it comes to being included in leadership. When her role was only at home, and for a woman the dynamics are very different because she can't have it at all times as she would like to. She has to take it different phases. Childbearing. You're nurturing your home, and so you take a back seat when it comes to leadership in that front. And even when you look at our politics, it's mostly dominated by men. So indeed, it's a good time to be a woman right now because of all the many global efforts that are being put in place to offer the woman to achieve and get into the opportunities that she would love to be in. However, I must say, coming from from the perspective of where I work at, and I see these women who have been really left behind without any opportunities, marginalized. I see that we still have a long way to go, but I think the long and short of how I would answer your question, I would say it's a good time to be a woman because the men have realized they can't and shouldn't leave us behind, and they're offering us those opportunities and spaces for us to be the best versions of ourselves. And I'm reminded of very quickly, the man has been commanded to love the woman like Christ loved the church. And that was the greatest love ever exemplified in the world, to dying on the cross for that love. So I think it's something we always ought to be conscious about. It's not like women are trying to compete with men. By the way, we need both men and women to then perform to the optimal. But women have been left behind for a very long time. So it's a good time to be a woman this time because of the opportunities we're being offered. Yeah.
Quite the balance there. It's a good time to be a woman,
Yeah.
because so much is being done. But at the same time, there are women who are still lagging behind.
Yeah.
And so we should, like as we go forward, we should also make sure that no woman is left behind, which is really your work.
Yes.
But we'll talk more about that.
Yeah.
And here we are, Malele,
Yeah.
and talking about the gains that women have made. Now,
Yeah.
men can no longer ignore.
It's true.
Even men who would say were really traditional,
Yeah.
and men who would be very, gender strong and say women belong to a particular place.
It's true.
Now they've been overtaken. That sense has been overtaken now,
Yeah.
and women have made some significant strides, and they have demonstrated that actually they are up to the part.
Yeah.
Now, as a man who is in the scene, right?
Yes.
What would you say are some of the interesting turns you've observed in terms of the significance of women and their contribution to society today?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I think one of the key areas we can look at is economic opportunities. We grew up in a very patriarchal society where a lot of those initial economic opportunities were only available to men. But now women have risen in their knowledge, in their way of doing things, that you can see across our country right now. A couple of our companies, their CEOs are women.
Yeah.
And those companies are doing better. You wouldn't realize that there is a dramatic shift in the performance of those companies. And so that's one thing you can look at. Secondly is in the political space. We are a space now where we have more women in power, more women governors, more of them being senators, and it goes all the way to MCAs. But what that has done, it has started to show people that the gender conversation, when it comes to certain aspects, that aspect of equality is just being able to present the same opportunities to both gender to take advantage of. And so for me as a man, I'm excited, not from a place of you being scared that, now, women are being elevated and will this take away from the boy child, is to say, okay, as we are evening out, as these gaps are being filled, then how do we continue to collaborate together to ensure that both men and women are performing according to their purpose, according to what God has given each and every one of them as a gift to be able to serve in community.
That's amazing, because you are a crop of a man that's smiling
Yes.
when they realize that women are making gains.
Exactly.
Not so to everyone.
Exactly.
Some would frown.
Yeah.
I know.
Some still want to protect their turf,
Yes.
and not everyone is glad about
Yeah.
these strides that women are making. But
Yeah.
and again, just knowing that you do a lot of work yourself.
Yes.
You're a woman.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes.
And then you work with women as well. We just want to, because I'm sure that you have ambitions, you have aspirations,
Yes.
and there are people locally and globally, women,
Yes.
who you draw inspiration from.
Definitely.
Maybe you
Yeah.
can tell us some of the women that you draw inspiration from, Trish.
Yeah, of course. Michelle Obama.
Okay.
She inspires many of us, having been such a graceful first lady, first African American first lady of the United States of America, and how she has, in particular, continued to support the girl child and the women across the world. I saw the other day she was in Malawi, investing in education for the girl child there. So she really inspires me. Of course, closer home, Wangari Maathai, who, informed us many years ahead of time to be climate conscious, to be sensitive to our environment. And at that time, the world really didn't understand. But today, it's the central conversation everywhere you go across the world. Sirleaf, former president of Liberia, who was amongst the very first leaders politically and the first African woman to head a nation. And of course, I also admire the First Lady of Rwanda. Yeah, I find that she leads with a very soft power, and she doesn't. You can see she's not contesting it. She is taking her space, and she knows her space. Yeah, and of course, I have to honor our own Mama Rachel Ruto. She has just taken that mantle. When you think about joy war, when you think about environment, when you think about an example of a woman at home, when you think about just economically empowering women, she has led by example. So these are many women I look up to, and I'm like, if they can do it, so can I, and so can the many women that I work with on a day-to-day basis. Yeah.
Great, great. And it's just interesting how, you've mentioned women who, yes, have held huge offices, but we've known them as serving the ground.
Yes.
We've not known them for their loftiness. We've known them for being in touch, with the ground, with just doing work with other women, with other children, with local communities. And I know that you, Malele, you don't want to lose out on this response.
For sure, for sure.
I can discern that you also are wanting to mention some women who you look at with admiration.
Exactly.
They could be, day-to-day women. They could also be, heavyweights, like Teresa has mentioned.
For me, I think I draw a lot of strength from my own mother, who is now passed. I think she sacrificed a lot, really, really sacrificed a lot for me to get to where I am. I look at church leadership, look at the women that serve with us in church, and they have taken their place now. It's not like before, all right? I'm inspired by the work that we do at Clean Start, and the women who are just coming out of prison and saying, this is not the end of my life. I want to turn things around. And as a publishing house, what we've actually done, we've become more deliberate to tell these stories, because as we associate with Teresa, not everyone will have that opportunity. But if we are to translate this story of what she's been able to do into a book, more women are able to learn from it. And so we are becoming more cautious as a publishing house and saying, what are the women's stories that we can put out? Right? Recently, we just published a book called The Girl with Special Shoes. Talks about a lady called Hilda. She grew up with, a disability. She couldn't walk well. And she rose up to become the first woman in Cameroon to become a national broadcaster. And so we tell that story, and she tells about her struggles. And that story has become very inspirational to many, not only within the continent, but also in Europe and in the US. And so many of us are inspired from a space of, there have been women who have been strong enough to stand even for us, on behalf of us, to become who we are today. And so for me, I appreciate women from that perspective. You find us as dads, many a times you are away from the house, but it's your wife, or it's the lady of the house that takes care of these children. And most of the men that we know today, some of them would come from a single mother home. and they're amazing in their leadership. So women continue to play an important role, not only in our nation, but also in the things that will affect the generation that is to come.
Okay.
Yes.
And you've mentioned a number of things there. Talked about your mother.
Yes.
Talked about a father as well.
Yes.
Which brings us, Teresa, to this important. It's a paradox.
Okay.
Because we find men who are very cultural.
Yeah.
I mean, they want to put women in their place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even if it takes structures,
Yeah.
Yeah.
they will use structures
Yeah.
to put
Yeah.
women in their place.
Yeah.
But don't touch their girls. Right? They want their girls to have wings to fly.
Yeah.
Yes.
They are no longer limiting their girls,
Yeah.
but they're limiting their wives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're limiting their female colleagues
Yeah.
in
Yes.
places of work.
Yes.
But their girls,
Yes.
don't touch them.
Don't touch
Yes.
them.
I mean, that's how do you process that?
I know because I am where I am today because of my father. You know, throughout my growing up, he was my hero. He's the one who mentored. My mom was there too, but there's this huge inspiration that I got from my dad. I mean, it left an indelible mark in me. So when you say don't touch my girl from fathers, I see it. And even when I'd be in my darkest and worst moments,
Yeah.
he's the one who would tell me, dust yourself up. I am here for you, to support you. And because of that support to date, I have no limit just because I know he's there for some reason. So it's very wrong. And I don't know what shifts that another man would see me and try to block me, you know,
Yeah.
but yet their own daughter,
Yeah.
they wouldn't do that. It's,
Yeah.
it's, I don't know. And you see that a lot in places of work.
Yeah.
I mean, even as I am doing what I am doing,
Yeah.
I'm normally made very aware because I work in a very male-dominated area, whether it's with prosecutors, whether it's, you know, in the corridors of the criminal justice space. I'm reminded, directly or indirectly, you're just another woman, you know, and sometimes to a point of, what are you trying to tell us? But as you say, it's such a paradox. They will then come and ask me, oh, this program has really succeeded for the women. What about the men?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, if this program was for men, would you be asking as men, what about the women? You know, it's very rare you find men in a group having their own discussions, going about their work, and them thinking, oh, we've left the men behind, we've left the women behind. But women, when you think about mothers, aunties, sisters, I'm telling you, whether it's in the house, whether it's at work, they will never feel okay without including the men. The sister will always think about the brother. You know, the wife will always think, oh no, I cannot have this before my husband. You know, at work, it's because of that nurturing nature. And even as we do our work, we're very deliberate, and we know that whatever we are developing is not entirely 100% reserved for women.
Yeah.
It's to be replicated across the world, across Kenya, across our continent, and indeed across the world, for everyone to apply this system that is more just for everyone across board. But men, it just boggles my mind. Why would you want to block me because I am a woman?
And you have a man right there.
And I have a perfection, and I have to work. I have to work twice as hard, sometimes 10 times more, to just prove this is worth it.
You can see there's the frustration.
Yeah, I can see that.
Can you respond to that?
It's painful. It's interesting because you would want your daughter, your sister to succeed. But to some extent, we've blocked it at that. And so as men, we need to have a mind shift. To, in fact, just come to the table and understand what are the issues. Because the aspect of us being able to empower women has been really spoken from an aspect of space being taken away from a man to accommodate a woman. And so, because we are territorial as men, you're always thinking about, she's taking my space. Whereas the conversation should be, the space has been expanded enough to accommodate both genders. And so if you shift your mind and say, the same way I would help my daughter, the same way I would help my wife, the same way I would help my sister, and create an opportunity for them, is because I believe there is space for them to serve. So why are you not extending the same mindset and the same belief to the community of women that are around you? And so it's not the lack of opportunity, neither is it the lack of understanding that women can perform to the same extent certain tasks of leadership in political spaces, but it's our own selfishness of just wanting to say, we don't think there's enough space to accommodate both of us. And I think that should be the conversation that, hey, the space has expanded, it's big enough for both genders to play in.
You know, you remind me of Barack Obama, who says that it is really not wise
Yes.
that a whole country will think they can move forward
Yes.
by leaving one whole gender behind.
Exactly.
You know, and it doesn't, I think it's in that same spirit.
Exactly.
But anyway, clearly the train has left the station.
Yes.
You know, you can do all you can, try to stop, but the train has left the station. So it's now for men to do catch up, where you are not with it, but you're forced now to actually just face it, which is why I would want to ask you, Teresa. The moment you meet a man who is blocking your way, and you can tell this is purely because I'm a woman. Now, how do you understand that moment? Do you see it as a point of just frustration and stop there? Or do you see it as a point of evangelism? You know, a time of recruitment? I mean, how do you handle that moment?
At that particular, immediately at that particular moment, of course, it's a lot of frustration because you've got this great desire that of something you want to advance and push forward. But this obstacle has been put before you just because of your gender. And you cannot change your gender, you know. It's the first instance is just how frustrating it is. And it's more frustrating because of the drive that you have within you. And there's nothing you can do about the drive and the passion that you have about the goals and the objectives that you're trying to achieve here. So you kind of feel very frustrated at that particular time. Of course, you will now begin, and what makes it even frustrating is that you feel that now you're wasting time trying to look for other ways and avenues, not to propel forward the agenda that you have to achieve the goals, but to first navigate through this obstacle that is here. And sometimes it has gotten very ugly. Very ugly. Because I remember in my case, for it to go all the way to imprisonment, the patriarchy, the male domination really played a very huge role. Arresting officer is a male. The magistrates are meeting, they are male. Everyone are meeting with power within the corridors of this criminal justice, they are male. And the lawyers of the accused, the complainant, they are also male. And the kind of condescending language that they are using towards me, it's so demeaning to a point whereby even as I'm trying to express my point as sober and focused to get it out that this is my evidence, you've hit me below the belt by what you're saying just based on my gender. If it were a man standing here, you wouldn't use those words, you know? So it's not just the statistics, it's our day-to-day life. And surely, I don't need to be reminded all the time when I'm trying to achieve my goals and objectives and the purpose that God has given me in this world. I don't have to always remember, oh, you're a woman. For crying out loud, men don't remember, oh, I'm a man. No, they just set out for, this is my goal, this is my objective, and they go for it. And they don't find a woman there trying to remind them, do you know you're a man? They already know that. Why should I always remember that I'm a woman? You know? But when you find these obstacles, the way I have tried to navigate sometimes, in addition to prayer, which is, a huge tool and power that I have found to just soften spaces that looked insurmountable. It's using my feminine side of things in a very positive way. So just diplomatically, just calming down, trying to explain, getting them into allyship, just using my feminine gifts that God has given me of building allyship, building consensus, and truly trying to show these people or persons that this is for us. And then when I do, if that doesn't work and I still manage to pass through and I find these people, forgive them. You forgive them, and with that, they're disarmed and stop fighting you any further. Because the truth of the matter, I know women have been left behind for quite some decades, and we're playing catch up. But we're not playing catch up to overtake the man. No, not at all. It's so that we can be at a place where we are supporting each other much better. God said it, two are better than one. He has said it in his word. The Almighty, the All-Knowing has said it. Two are better than one. So that's all we want to offer, So we are pushing ourselves to get to that point where we've gotten to that level and we're offering our best so that we can now tell our men. When you think about the leaders of countries, how many women can you count leading countries in this world? Yet COVID showed us the countries that were led by women. They did the best during the COVID time. It was that right there. So which means the world is missing out on so much by not giving women an opportunity just based on their gender.
Amazing. I can tell the passion.
Yeah.
As we talk about women and opportunity, and I want to come to you, Malele, on this.
Yes.
Not all women are on board when it comes to the place they have in terms of opportunity. There are some women who still support the fact that the man is ahead. The man must always be my senior, and so they shrink at the sight of Malele coming into the space. Not every woman is on board. Some women are afraid, or they don't understand themselves that way. They still understand themselves as women who are supposed to take authority from the man. Just speak to that.
So remember that gender roles are cultural norm. So a lot of our learnings is because of the culture that we've come from. Especially around our continent, women have always played a back, like a step behind a man. And even, in our languages, we've coined things like behind every successful man is a... And we look at these things, and they form ideologies for people. If you look at some of our cultures, even when you're walking with your wife, the man is in front, the woman is... So we've put so many things that just drive on that gender item. For me, what I usually say is we need to look more around capacities. Many women are missing opportunities, not because they don't have capacity, just because they're women. And so as men, we have to start finding a way to say, if our sisters have the same capacities to perform a duty, we need to give them the same opportunity as we do men. And you can look at it this way. When you go to hospital and your child is really not feeling well, you really don't look at, is this doctor a woman or a man? All right? If you were to go into surgery today, you wouldn't stop the surgeon there and say, hey, it's a woman, so let her not operate on me.
Yeah.
And so if we can play it there, why do we find it difficult to transfer that same understanding into other aspects of our lives? All right? And as we said, when we come together, beautiful things happen. If you look at it, families that are successful are families where the man and the woman are working together towards a goal. If you as a man within a family context, you look this side and your wife or your partner is looking the other side, is unlikely that you're going to experience success within that union. But I've seen couples who have been married 50, 60 years. And because the man has allowed the woman to support and work together, collaborate towards the success of the family, you find those units are way better. And the children that are coming out of that have a different understanding. You see, like my sons, having seen how I treat my wife, that I can go to the kitchen, it's not an issue, it's not, on Sundays you serve. They start having a servant heart and understanding is about capacities. It's not about this, there's a woman here, there's a man there. And so that learning and the things we're struggling with now are things that children who are young are going through the school system should learn, so that the next Teresa doesn't have to find a block, not because of capacity, but just because she's a woman.
Wow. Okay. I would say Malele people would tell you that you're very westernized in terms of your thinking.
Yes.
That's a way of sweeping everything you've said.
Yes.
I said, listen to this Western man. Maybe talking capacities.
Yes.
Let's talk culture. You know? So just to say that those are the kind of sweeping responses that would actually just bring down just those beautiful things that you've talked about.
Yes.
But even as we talk about beautiful things that happen when people get together, Teresa, Malele, the truth is that ugly things are happening.
Indeed.
Because women are still facing a lot of violence.
Yes.
We'll take a short break.
Okay.
And when we come back, we'll talk about things that are not so beautiful.
Sure.
Viewer, we are talking about women, power, faith, and violence. And when we come back, we'll be talking about the kinds of violences that women are facing and what we need to understand for us to prevent those kinds of acts from going on. This is Spotlight. We're taking a short break. Stay right here. We'll be right back.
Get ready for the most electrifying gospel event of the year, Praise Atmosphere 2023, on the 9th of December at Sitam Karen, Nairobi, from 2 p.m. onward, featuring Evelyn Wanjiru, Prosper Ochimana from Nigeria, Rehema Simfukwe from Tanzania, Edith Wairimo, Celestine Donkor from Ghana, Wilberforce Musioka, Solomon Mukubwa, Kestin Bogo, and Sharon Ishavuka from Kenya. Regular tickets are available for just 1,000 shillings, 2,000 shillings at the gate, and for the children 3 to 12 years, it's only 500 shillings. VIP and VVIP tickets are also available. Visit www.praiseatmosphere.com/events or use paybill number 800-8575, account Praise. Praise Atmosphere 2023, uniting hearts in worship.
Kama vile mashua baharini, mizani imekwisha wasili. Mara hii kila Alhamisi.
Salata kabisa, mpenzi mtazamaji, mpenzi msikilizaji wa Mizani.
Tungependa Wakenya waende kwenye nchi ambazo tuko na mikataba nao.
Kulikuwa na Raila Odinga, kukawa na Wajakoya pia. Mbona hongeunga mkono?
Tupe mauzani wa masuala ibuka na chupukayo toka kila pembe ya Kenya na ukanda huu wa Afrika. yawe mambo au vijimambo, jiongea na kutaarifu na kuarifu zako fikra. Kila Alhamisi saa 1 machweo kwenye runinga ya Hope TV.
Nitamu.
Tukutane mizani.
Friday Frenzy. It's been a year of non-stop vibes, laughter, and incredible moments with Tiffany Wamboe and DJ Kevin on Friday Frenzy. Well, we'd like to celebrate this milestone together. Join us on the 17th of November 2023 at the Huruma Grounds from 4 p.m. till late for the ultimate Friday Frenzy Anniversary Bash. Brace yourselves for mind-blowing performances by Diddy Man, MC Ocampo, Timeless Noel, Jappy D, and the sensational Dangari.
Special thanks to our sponsor.
Viewer, welcome back. This is Spotlight here on Hope TV, where you look and live. And what a conversation about women and faith and power. Yeah. And now on this segment, violence. And violence against women is something that we observe so many times in so many ways. And sometimes we normalize just what we see. But we want to tell us in this conversation that it's not normal that women should be violated. It's not normal. It's not even godly. And when we talk about women and violence, and there are different forms of, violations. You know, we have domestic violence, we have physical violence, we have sexual violence, we have trafficking, we have rape, we have FGM. There's a whole array of, violations, which is really not a pleasant thing, even to say that there's a whole list. That list should not exist. If we were human, and if we saw each other in terms of the equality that you're talking about, then this list would not exist. We'll be talking about another kind of list. But now here we are, still women, as much as they've gained a lot of, made a lot of strides, they still face express violence, specifically from men and systems. Now, Teresa, just drawing from your woman sense, you can tell us, when you face a form of violation, what do you feel as a woman?
The first thing is fear. You're not safe, you're not secure. And this violation is happening again just because of your gender. If you look at the highest number of people who are trafficked, sex trafficked, it's young girls and women in the droves out of this country and on this continent to other places, just because they are women, young girls, and, to what we like to refer as the weaker sex, but the weaker sex just physically. But you see, the people who are doing this are the greatest, I think the most weak people you could ever find when it comes to their mind. For you to do this to someone who does not have the power to reiterate, what you're trying to do to them. I've met young girls who've been sex trafficked, and I've met women who have been sexually abused. Gender-based violence forms one of the largest population of women in prisons. And these are women who are now being punished because as victims, you are a victim, but now here you are being punished because of what has been done to you, because of how you react to that, trying to defend yourself. So, and the numbers are rising, unfortunately. The numbers are rising. There's a lot of violation towards women, young girls. And I think it's because I see them on a day-to-day basis. And sometimes I wonder, is it because the man has not been empowered enough to deal with their frustrations, to deal with their inadequacies, if it is underemployment or unemployment or whatever it is that they are facing, and now you're coming to face the weaker person physically to do things to this evil violation too. It's a very bad, it's a very insecure space to be as a woman, always watching over your shoulder. And what happens is that you're always thinking about your daughter. You're always thinking about a young girl when you see them. So as opposed to just being comfortable, you've got this unspoken trauma because of what you've seen, because of what you've had, and you're always extra cautious as a woman, always extra cautious. Anyone could do anything to you. So always watching God, but you're not just watching God for yourself. You're watching out for other younger girls, other younger women than you, or even older, because you don't know who will come to do what to them. You know? It's not a good place to be living, because God has not given us a spirit of fear, or timidity. We shouldn't be living you're always insecure, and primarily because you're a woman. You know, just because you're a woman, you're a target. It's not a good place to be. Yeah.
You know, strong words there, that it's kind of a hovering trauma.
Yes.
A hovering sense of insecurity.
Yeah.
A hovering sense of fear.
Yes.
All because some men see women as objects.
Yes.
Either objects to use or objects to oppress and stop.
Yes.
And Malele, why do we still have men who see women as objects, as people to quash, as people to use?
Yes.
Where does that mind come from?
There are many aspects that contribute to that kind of a thought process. Remember, violence is about control. You've tried to control someone using other means, and for one reason or another, they are not yielding, or they are giving you a different perspective. And of course, we can say there are many challenges that men face, and just because we don't talk about a lot of things, sometimes we find that, unfortunately, becomes an easy way of bringing back control to a space where you presumably think you have lost control. And so, because we don't have a lot of conversations around violence and why we do it, then we continue to perpetuate it because of our silence. I think it's time for us to stand and say, to make personal pledges that I will not contribute, going forward, I will not contribute to being in a space where I'll make a woman feel so, remove the confidence from her that she feels useless. Because part of it is what you're talking about in terms of just being able to commit violence physically. But in our a lot of our workspaces and the communities we come from, there's a lot of emotional violence where women are intimidated at work. There's so much harassment. And so it could not necessarily just be physical, but you totally destroy a woman's mental state. There are many things that cause this, both on the sides of women and on the sides of men. But as men, we must take a deliberate step, because most of us are perpetuators of violence. We must take a deliberate step and say, what are alternative ways? Because sometimes it could be that you feel this is the only way out. What if you just take a break and say, where this is going is not where we both of us want to end. Can we take a pause on this? And I found sometimes if you take a pause a little bit earlier before getting to a space where now there's no way out, you might probably rethink through things and avoid a scenario where you become violent in those forms that we have talked about. We have to understand that, as you've said, women are not objects and women don't need to be controlled. And if we get that out of our mind, then we look for better ways to be able to resolve some of the things that gets us to a place of being perpetuated of some of those things that you've talked about.
All right. Let's stay with you, Malele,
Yes.
because let's talk about the space that is the workplace.
Yes.
There's what is express oppression
Yes.
and express emotional violence.
Yes.
But there's another subtle version.
Yes.
I'll call it maybe hypocritical
Yes.
or manipulative,
Exactly.
whereby a man will support or mentor, a woman
Yes.
to certain levels,
Yes.
be their sponsor
Yes.
in that technical sense.
Yes.
But once the woman has arrived, well done. I mean, the man has done very well.
Yeah.
I mean, you've guided this woman to a certain good level.
Yeah.
But then it's payback time.
Exactly.
And the lady never saw it coming. That kind of hypocrisy and that kind of now violent demand.
Yes.
That there was a transaction here that you should have understood.
Yeah.
When we began at the very, I didn't need to tell you about it.
Yes.
Now that hypocritical, hidden, manipulative kind of bed of violence.
Yes.
How? Just speak to that.
I think one of the key things that as men we have to bring back to the conversation is just integrity and morals. A lot of us are not clear when we get into some of these things. We want to help someone because we anticipate them to help us. Or you're helping a lady to be able to rise so that she can become your pet project once she's at that space. And so it's a space of personal reflection. Because when our morals are degraded to an aspect that what you stand for is not who you are. All right? So we're not spending a lot of time as men in saying, who am I becoming? Because as you grow old, as you're saying, you could have a daughter. And even if you don't have a daughter, there's a sister associated with you. So the goodwill that you have for your sister or your daughter should be to the same extent what you anticipate for women at work. There's that form, and there's a second one, where you only want to help a woman to get to a certain level. But you're not wishing her to become better than you. And so you're only sharing a percentage of yourself, knowing very well that this woman, her mission in life, what God has set in her path, is greater than who you are at this point in time. And so when we start getting comfortable in our own skin, a lot of this conversation is just around, are you comfortable in what God has called you to do? Once you're comfortable, you're able to help Teresa. You're able to help someone else. Some people will not rise to your level, but you must have it in your mind that some of the people you're working with now will become better than yourself. And because we don't want to tackle that, that's why we do the things we do. That now I got you to this. And even in our faith circles, people have taken it upon themselves of saying, I got you to this. And totally remove the place of God in using you as a vessel. So if we get back to a space and see ourselves as vessels that God can use in the manner that he needs, then some of these conversations, the tone will become a little bit lower. Because if she succeeds, we all succeed. You can imagine a number of women that she's reaching out to. And then you're frustrating her, but you yourself are not able to reach to that community. For what?
That's very interesting what you've just said. And it calls for a lot of, introspection.
Exactly.
And and a lot of, it's just soul searching.
Yes.
Because these kinds of traps and ceilings
Exactly.
and nuances of the heart,
Exactly.
you know, whereby you're not loving freely. Because when you love freely. If you are relating from a love point of view, then it's free. You know, whether the person becomes bigger.
Yes.
In fact, you get a little frustrated when they don't get to their full potential.
Exactly.
You know, because you're driven by love. So we ask ourselves, what really should drive our relationships, men and women in different spaces, whether it's at home, whether it's a place of work. I mean, we should just change the ethic with which drives us.
Exactly.
And again, you know, from a practical point of view, Teresa. You deal with women a lot, and women in a very vulnerable state. When they are in prison, when they are in maybe a system looking for justice, or they just left prison, very vulnerable. Now, from your experience, what do you see is the role of violence in what the women you support go through?
I will begin with the research that we have done that has shown us clearly through the data. We've got evidence that shows that 65%, 3/4 of the women who have come to prison have been abused by their romantic partners, by their parents, by their neighbors, but along their journeys, they have been abused. And that abuse has contributed directly to their ending up.
This is 65%.
Wow. That's a very huge percent.
Really huge.
Which means if this woman had not been violated, had not been abused, she wouldn't be sitting in prison. Can you imagine? It was the violation that got her there. Now, 65% have been violated, and it has directly caused them to be in prison. So these are victims. We're punishing them further as victims to go through a very grueling system. These women end up being so traumatized, so broken, self-esteem gone, confidence gone. And once she comes out of those prison gates, she will never get a certificate of good conduct, which means she's being told by the world, you're not worthy of a job. You're not worthy of ever getting on a plane to go work abroad. The obstacles just accelerated further of what she can not be able to do or achieve. Her children, because 90% of these women that we work with in prisons are mothers and the sole caregiver. So it's trickling down to the children that she's bringing up. First and foremost, when she went, they were left all by themselves. And guess what was happening to these children? The very first day mom went in, those children were up for violation by whoever. I mean, it's not a secret. Those are the children that are abused in our neighborhood, in whichever manner. Drop out of school, neighbors take advantage of them. You know, these children suffer so much. So we're abusing this woman, and then it's trickling down to her children. That's a huge other generation of boys and men, because now at that level is those young little boys who've been left without any protection, and those boys are abused on another level, plus these young girls. Their lives will never be the same again. And so what this does is that you've planted a seed in this little child who will grow up with that kind of a foundation of pain. And that's, I mean, what's inside of you is what you give out to the world. And then they end up in prisons one way or the other. So violence, you know, violations, we've got to really introspect what we're doing. You might think it's just this woman you're beating and it's an entire generation that you're doing that to. And For what? As Malele has asked, for what? Can't you reason together? Or if you really can't agree amicably, just go separate ways. You don't need to violate someone to that extent. So it contributes to a huge extent. Even the women who, hawking or just trying to sell their wares, the way they're treated at the point of arrest, the violation, at the point of arrest, how they are mishandled. And this is a woman, yeah? Immediately they begin going through the criminal justice system. These structures, the infrastructure, was built by the colonialists for the man. The prisons were not built for women. But now she has to go through infrastructure that's 100% meant for men, that's not conducive for her as a woman. And then when we want to put these hundreds of women together and lock them up, we just put a small extension that's not functioning and put these women there. More violation, no human dignity. We are not thinking about their needs. I mean, women go through a lot. Whichever way you think about it, even in the very low cadre, what the women are going through is a million more times, And so we really, really need to think about how we treat our women, the opportunities we give them, and just being sensitive. Just being a little bit more sensitive.
As you speak, your pain is very clear because you can tell that you can see images in your mind as you tell this. And maybe this week, as we're coming to a close of this conversation, Malele, you've talked about mind shift.
Yes.
And because men are culprits here quite a bit.
Yeah.
So how do we begin to have a mind shift that begins to end perpetuators and increase preventers?
Yeah, I think we're at a critical space. Whereas men, we must start thinking about women as part of us. I think there is a way we think about everything close to us, but then have this entire thing, we put it aside. Whereas women should be closer than some of the things that are even closer to us. There are people whose investments, whose cars, things of this world are closer to them than the relationship they have with the opposite gender. So first of all is self-reflection and saying, if in my family there has been any sort of violence, it ends with me. And if it ends with me, the boys that are coming after me, the men that are younger than me, I will take the opportunity to be able to mentor them in the right way. Okay? And I can give you an example. For me, my son, when he was making a list, he had a birthday recently and he made a list. And they were almost all of them were boys. I told him, if this is going to happen, it has to be 50-50. You have people in school that are boys, and also you have girls. So if this, whatever you're envisioning as a birthday has to work, I have to see that. And it's interesting because he's really picked it up. That in his engagement with boys and with girls, I can watch him like when they're playing outside. And when the boys are starting to be aggressive against the women, my son will stand for that and say, hey guys, we need to play fair in his own small way. And so I believe by me showing him how I am treating their mother in the house with things that I do, how I talk to her, I can see them passing that on as they play outside. And that's what we want to see. So the first thing is to say, you make a personal commitment and say, this is going to stop with me. And if you've been privileged that there has not been violence in your immediate family, there's always violence in your community. Take time to mentor boys in our communities to become better in their relationship with women.
Great. I like the way you've gone all the way to parenting. That parenting is a big space
Yes.
for us to begin correcting this a culture of violence.
Yes.
Exactly.
And we know that also education
Yes.
and enlightenment play
Yes.
a big role.
Yes.
And as we end, Teresa, you can just tell us a little bit about the conference that you're
Yes,
having,
yes.
the Beyond the
Bars
Bars conference.
conference,
Just a little
yes.
bit as we end.
As we end, indeed, Beyond the Bars Africa Conference, a unique platform that brings women who have been negatively, adversely impacted by the criminal justice system, who never got the justice. Remember, I said they were victims that ended up being locked up. And the pain is inside of them. There's all this they've ever wanted to say but never got a platform. This is that platform where they say, yes, I might have done wrong. No, I did not do wrong, but you never heard me. This is their platform to be heard. But this is a platform for them to be heard, to make amends with the perpetrators, to seek allyship. And so, as a community of formerly imprisoned women in the country, we invite the faith-based organization, the corporates, the business people, and we all come together, civil society, other NGOs, we all come together and look, where are things going wrong? How is it we can parent better? How can men support women better? And those kind of conversations, and we come up with recommendations and then go to see how we implement them. So that's the conference that's happening tomorrow and Friday. We've got women from across this country who've come together. We've got stakeholders who've come together. We've got international guests from the United States, from Ghana, from South Africa, who are joining in because this is not just a Kenyan issue, it's a continental issue, but it's also global. And so we'll be coming together to see how do we treat each other in a much more fairer, just way.
All right.
Yeah.
Grace to you and good success.
Thank you.
As you champion a very important area of justice and fairness,
Yeah.
and lessening oppression
Yeah.
and violence against women.
Thank
you so much for being on Spotlight.
Our great
We really
pleasure.
appreciate Amalele. Thank you.
Thank you.
For representing a whole gender.
Yes.
Thank you.
did that very well.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.
Yeah.
Viewer, what a great insights coming to us from this conversation around women, faith, power, and violence. Now, as a woman, when you encounter a block that threatens to be violence, now, don't just shrink, stand. And as a man, as you interact with women in different spaces, don't perpetuate violence, prevent it. This has been Spotlight. Thank you for watching.